Boys, we're here. This is the week where Poirier is going to face Islam. This is it. It's the granddaddy of all. It's the fight we've all been waiting for. Every time I log on the Instagram, I see all the edited reels. Dustin's going to lock in the rear naked choke in the second round. He's going to do it. Shine bright like a diamond, and then you wake up from your dream. Anyway, what's up? Welcome back to the Bettor Sports Show. I'm Ryan. I'm here with Randy. Randy, how you doing tonight?
Ryan, what's going on, brother?
Not much. We have a good amount to talk tonight. I just have a little bit of hockey I want to touch on, then I'm going to go full fucking throttle. There we go, into the MMA. Well, what do you have on the docket?
What, as far as MMA or NHL?
Just in general.
So me personally, to touch on a little bit what we discussed last week to carry over into the NBA playoffs. Spoke briefly last week on just, again, be careful of following the narrative too closely from the mainstream, whether you watch ESPN or FS1 or just radio banter. Not even 3 weeks ago, they had Anthony Edwards hailed as the next Michael Jordan off of a couple highlight reels and a series through the playoffs. And here we are. They did take the last game against the Mavs, but they are still down 3-1. And again, just to really generally say, again, you can't follow the narrative that's being pushed by the mainstream too hard. It's very misleading. And anytime that you hear the media boasting up a brand new superstar and you hear the waxing poetic Jordan comparisons out of really nowhere, because those conversations weren't being had 2 months ago. They weren't being had during the All-Star break. But all of a sudden, one series through the playoffs, and all of a sudden the guy's the second coming of Jordan. It's a ridiculous notion. The guy's obviously a stud. He's a baller. Edwards is great, especially at his age. He's only 22. Nobody's won a chip. Jordan didn't win a chip at 22. LeBron didn't win a chip at 22. Edwards is likely to not win a chip at 22. We're sitting here watching Boston await the outcome of this Western Conference run here. Tatum doesn't have a ring yet. Doncic doesn't have a ring yet. So it's, you know what I mean? It's rushing to conclusions with the boasting of superstars is just a little bit crazy to me. And again, it feels good to be on the right side of this one. And also just to touch on the one wager that we mentioned last week with the Mavericks being plus 600
Yeah,
to win the finals.
Yeah.
Looking great right now. If you played that, I put it in for 5. But it's looking like a great little value, great little ticket for whatever size unit that you dropped in there for a plus 600, which is, again, in hindsight, absolutely ridiculous that they had the Mavericks behind the Wolves here. And that's, I feel like, personally, just off of the media hype. I could understand maybe it's because, they did beat the Nuggets, but again, it's just jumping to conclusions as far as mainstream media trying to push a narrative. I'm not falling for it. I'm not buying the Wolves taking them to 7 either. I'm not sure if we're privy to the random news from the last game. Apparently, Anthony Edwards mentioned to Micah Parsons that I'll see you for Game 6 in Dallas. I'm going to bring you a nice pair of shoes, and everybody's got their tinfoil hats on super tight, thinking that that's like, oh, the fix is in, and then the game's going to go 7 series. Edwards commented on that today, and he's like, "What do you want me to say? That we're going to lose Game 5?"
Yeah.
Right. So, and again, I like his attitude. He's got spunk. He's got confidence. I like it, but a little bit too much to bite off against this Mavs team right now. They may win Game 5, but there's no way. There's no way the Mavs let this go to 7. Absolutely no way.
I have the Mavericks winning back at home in 6 games. So
I agree. Again, the Wolves might stick it to them. I don't know if you watched the last game at all. Very back and forth. I had the Mavs doing the same thing they did the game previous. It's going to be neck and neck, and they'll pull ahead right at the end there. Didn't go that way this time. It was close. It was close because the Tims, I believe they were ahead by like 7 or 8 most of the game. And Mavs made it pretty close towards the end. But, yeah, I agree. Mavs in 6. And me personally, I just hope, because it's not that I want to see Boston lose, but I want to see them challenged at some point in this playoff run. It's really hard to argue. And again, it's not their fault. I'm not going to sit up here and down talk a team that finished number one in the league. They had the best record in the league. Clearly, well, that's what we're fighting for right now between the Mavs and the Tims. Maybe not the best team in the league, arguably, definitely the best in the East. But there's no shot the Tims could take the Celtics down at all. Not in 6, not in 7. The people need a Mavericks Celtics finals that will go to 7. But if the Mavericks somehow botch this, it's going to be, I would say, probably the least watched NBA finals historically, because there's just no way. There's no way the Tims take it to the Celtics.
I don't know if it'll be as less watched as Nuggets versus Heat, because that one was clearly going to end in like 5 games. I think just due to the Celtics, they'll have enough viewership if that happens. Also, to your point, Anthony Edwards, in the post-game interview, he said, "Yeah, I've never been swept before, and I would have taken that personally." And then it's like, "Okay, buddy, I see what you're doing. You're dropping the MJ reference there. Like, haha, I watched Last Dance. I understand what the media is trying to do." Yeah, so on the 24/7 news cycle where the sports media has to talk about random bullshit day in and day out just to fill airtime, half of them don't even believe the shit they say. They just fight with each other for fun and clicks. You need to be very wary of just being influenced at all about any of those things. Except, and I'm not making this up, Stephen A. Smith did a breakdown on Mewtwo, the Pokemon. I thought that was excellent.
I didn't see this. What's that?
I am dead serious. Someone sent in on Twitter a picture of Mewtwo, and they're like, "Stephen A., would you take Mewtwo or LeBron in his prime?" And he like broke it down. He's like, "All right, let's look at the stats." He's done similar ones, like he did one for cars, like, Lightning McQueen. So I like that stuff. That stuff's fun and funny.
If we're
But
being real, I'd probably pick up Mewtwo as a steady shooting guard.
me personally, I like to have Charizard for the rim protection, but that's just me. Anyway,
Oh man,
so
that's a curveball. That is funny.
see, fun stuff like that, that's really funny. But in terms of actual opinions, remember, don't take actual opinions from a lot of the analysts. Like I remember, when Mike Ditka was on the Monday night of a Sunday Night Football, anytime the Bears would play, he would pick the Bears. The Bears had some very rough, lean years recently. And I was like, wow, why is this guy like the Bears? He must know something we don't. And then I was like, wait a minute. I turned like 12. I'm like, this is Mike Ditka. He played for the Bears. He was like, Bears. Fucking love the Bears.
One of the GOATs, man. That's the 1980 Bears. Come on now.
Indeed. Elite part of Bears history. But that's why you're going to have players with their biases. Like, you think Reggie Miller cared that the Knicks lost? No.
I got to speak on that real quick too.
Speak on that.
It's very vindicating how Boston handled the Pacers, and it was very karmic. Again, it's unfortunate the amount of injuries that the Knicks had, because that was just flat out an entertaining series against the Pacers. They were both chippy. They were both scrappy. Knicks almost went up 3-0. Gosh, I can't remember his name, but he sinks a crazy 3 in game 3 to make it 2-1. But the fact that, holy shit, I lost my point. What was the last point you mentioned?
The last point I mentioned?
Yeah.
I was just talking about how Reggie Miller.
There we go.
Yeah.
That's all I wanted. So the only thing I just want to say about the Reggie Miller drama during the Knicks Pacers series feels very vindicating to see how the Celtics handled the Pacers with the whole choke thing. That, if you were a casual fan and you just tuned in for that series where Reggie Miller did the commentating, it was a completely false narrative. That when Reggie Miller did this to the choke and he hit that what was that, 8 points in 5 seconds or whatever,
7 points, and
they lost that series.
Yeah,
they lost that series, and historically the Knicks owned the fucking Pacers in the playoffs. I forgot what the record is. I'm not going to quote an inaccurate record, but essentially it was like a 700 or a 2-1 rather record. And they had a winning record against them at the Garden. And so all that. And then to double on that, with Draymond Green in the next broadcast for the next game, just talking crazy. And the whole panel's looking at him like, what the fuck are you talking about? Again, it's just back to the main narratives, but the Reggie Miller concept there too. They had him on that broadcast the same way you brought up Ditka. And it's like, oh, why is this guy rolling with the Bears? Yeah. Why is Miller's riding so hard with the Pacers? Oh, he did this one thing one time that didn't really matter much. And they focused on that for like 15 minutes into the pregame. I guarantee that affected Bettor's decisions and all sorts of things throughout the game. It's silly that they could get away with it. Live TV, and again, credible people. Who's going to sit there and question Reggie Miller that he owned the Knicks while he's saying it on live TV? But he literally never did. He literally never did. He had a great moment and a great games. You know, they faced each other in the playoffs several times. They lost that series. And so trying to drive a narrative a certain way, and again, you got to watch out with some of these broadcasters from their former teams. It's easy pickings to see what they're doing there.
I believe they also would have lost in 95 as well in the rematch after that, but Ewing missed the shot at the end. If not, the Knicks would have came back from the 3-1 deficit. Also, now, if you're watching this for the first time, you're probably thinking, well, that's a bit of a stretch, you know, saying these commentators are going to influence people. There was a study done on NBC News. I remember reading this back in school. Subconsciously, they showed people, news anchors, talking about two different political candidates. And the anchors, if they were talking about, say, somebody on one side, if they just slightly smiled more and their body language is more positive, that would make a better impression of that candidate in the mind of the viewer. So both consciously and subconsciously, you need to understand the things you're taking in matter a lot. Now, I know you're probably thinking, well, everybody knows Dick is a huge Bears guy. That's not going to affect me. Everybody knows Reggie Miller, you know, winning time. He hates the Knicks. Reggie Miller versus the Knicks. Guys, I'm telling you, these things, they can seep into your mind. The music you listen to, the news you consume, the social media you just mindlessly scroll by. It fucks with your dopamine, and that can fuck with your decision making. So don't think we're going too deep here, right? I'm a very, very firm believer in my tinfoil hat, putting it on, not trusting the shit that they post on the FanDuel Sportsbook and the DraftKings Sportsbook, you know, shit like that. So just keep that in mind. These aren't your friends, and the broadcast networks are in bed with the sports books, right? They're having fucking pillow talk as we speak right now. Oh, yeah, baby, we fucked the bettors out of so much money. So don't trust those people, okay? The sports you grew up watching when you were a kid, they're gone. Right? Those broadcasts, they're gone. My dad used to tell me the good old days of when you would go to meet your bookie in like a fucking shady-ass Walmart parking lot looking around. And now we're watching fucking Panthers versus Rangers, and the commentator pumps in, yes, we have the live money line here on the Rangers and the live over-under. And me as the gambling guy, I'm watching it, I'm like, what the fuck, bro? We really opened Pandora's box. So remember, when you're watching these games and these broadcasts, everything they do is by design. There's too much money at stake to fuck around at all. Like on the TNT, when Chuck always gives his prediction. I think if you faded Chuck, there was a time this year you would make a lot. Yeah, you know about that?
The amount of times just towards the end of the regular season into the playoffs, just watching the Knicks games with my dad or just whatever was on TNT, literally every time I'm like, you know that's not going to hit, right? And he's like, let me know if it does. And 9 times out of 10, I'm like, it was 1 out of 2. If he gave out like sometimes he does a parlay.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, no. Might be worse than Trent. Might be worse than Trent.
On the NHL broadcasts, they always do a 3-leg parlay, and it always bothers me because it's inversely correlated. It'll be like one team to score, but the other team to win. You know how fucking awful that is? Like, it'll be, so for example, Rangers, Panthers, boys. If you were to do it the way they do it, you would, for example, you would say the Panthers are going to score first, but the Rangers are going to win the game. And how bad that is, and how much that puts you behind the 8 ball to think that, all right, this team's going to come back down from 1-0. Don't do that.
You're essentially believing it's delusions of grandeur, really. You're truly believing you have a crystal ball and you're going to predict every major outcome of the game while it happens. I mean, that's just, again, maybe I don't want to know what the percentage on those kind of parlays. It's got to be 5% or less, probably.
It's really bad. And those parlays on the broadcasts, they're never just like, say game 4. Even though I'm not a parlay guy, if someone's going to come to me and be like, yep, I like the Timberwolves to win or cover and I like Edwards over 26 points. You're like, oh, okay. If those two things logically go together, it's never that. It's always some weird,
Yeah.
weird shit. It's like, oh yeah, this bench player is gonna have like 2 quick scopes, a 5 kill streak. It's gonna reconnect with his long lost father. This center is gonna shoot 12 threes. They're gonna bring this guy down from the audience. He's gonna win the opening tip off. It's like some uncut gem shit. And that's another thing that always bothers me. They know this stuff is wild. Like they know these aren't good
Oh, yeah.
bets. And yet they're just kind of sitting there and everybody's going along with it. It's
Yeah,
wild.
I mean, again, and it goes back to everything that you talk about really on your page. And again, I could say for myself, it's a good reality check, and a lot of people don't like reality checks, but just look at what you're betting. Or again, if you want to bet wild underdog props, oh man, at least money line, because the chances of 4 or 5, 6 of these, right, mix and match props. Two is for this team to score, but the third one's for this team to win. Let me throw the under in there too. You you can't possibly believe that's a good idea. And there's no way anybody does. What they're looking for is the come up, and there's nothing wrong with that. But you can't do that every day, and you can't do that with real money that you're going to hurt it when that loses. A little $5 parlay, long shot here and there. Do your thing. But yeah, there's some bettors out there that again they fall for it. I don't think we're being too heady and getting too deep into it by mentioning again things like broadcaster opinions and stuff like that pregame or just throughout the day. Um, there's a lot of suckers out there, and there's a lot of people very easily influenced. And again, speak from experience. I had to learn the hard way. Me and you have exchanged quite a few hardy failed bet
Mhm.
stories, but we're better for it now. No pun intended.
Indeed, indeed. We know not to fall for their traps, the shenanigans they pull, and hopefully you guys can learn from some of the stuff we've said that I've said, just not doing stupid shit, stopping and thinking like, wait a minute, why am I being shown this information? Who does it benefit if I follow this information, if I tail this bet? If you just chill for like 5 seconds, in our dopamine addled society, you can save yourself a lot of trouble in the long run. And I'm wholeheartedly convinced. I know a lot of people may disagree with this. If you do, I get it. I don't think traditional bookmaking is all they do anymore. They just try to balance out the sides of a bet and take the rake. I think they're 100% out there to fuck the public, set traps, and increase their profit margins more than they want to. Right?
I agree. I mean, and again, some things I do privately. It's hard to give some of these things out when we're doing kind of thought experiments, betting experiments in general. But now that you mention it, so what I've been doing, I'll let you in on this. For the past 2 weeks, I've been heading over to shout out Juice Reel. Um, I head over there and I look at their best betters, worst betters, right? And I just look at that line and I see how it's divided up. But then I go over to BetMGM. It's not, they don't have this on FanDuel, but on BetMGM, when you click on an individual game, it will show you the betting percentage of the public for the spread, the over under, and the money line. I use those two, and between what the best bettors are doing and the discrepancy that I see on BetMGM with the public, if I see the public 80% or over, uh, what I've been doing just to keep tabs on it, I drop a $1 bet and I have a tally going of that. I will get back to you with a decent sample size when more time passes. But again, if fading the public didn't work a decent amount of the time, most bettors would be successful.
Right. This is especially true in football. Football, football, football. You can just be a contrarian asshole, and a good 7 out of 10 times you'll make money. That's just it.
And you're making it threefold. That's the thing. You know what I mean? A lot of these people, so yesterday, just as an example, the Athletics, right? And to shoot over to MLB, they're performing much better than expected. Are
Mhm.
they a top team in the league? Absolutely not. But they have some things going on over there. They're winning some games. They're in a series with the Rays right now. The Rays are performing way below expectations. I'm looking at numbers, pitchers, all this stuff. Odds just simply don't make sense. There's not enough respect there. And then I look again at the percentage breakdown, it was like 75% of the money on the raise. And a lot of the times when I see this stuff, I really think it's just bettors that are intimidated from the concept of an underdog. They really, really believe the odds that are put out on the sports books for just straight up face value that a minus 250, there's no way that they can lose. A minus 180, there's no way, this is a lock. And again, I'm 52% of the time favorites win. So that's 48% of the time underdogs are hitting. It does not matter what your number is as a favorite. If you're betting against a minus 300 and you're betting a small unit size, you'd be surprised how many of those are going to hit, and the profit that you're making off those, you can afford some losses. That's why, even again, me personally, when I started taking my sports betting a little bit seriously, a little bit more seriously this past August, focusing on underdog plays and not just only betting underdogs because it's an underdog, but again, just like really looking at that example I just gave you. This team's overperforming. This team's underperforming. This is the situation. How are these the odds? You know what I mean? And I think a fair amount, I wouldn't say all, but a fair amount of these lines are set on just, again, the dependability that people see in favorite lines. Even if it's a minus 110, a minus 110 sounds so much better to so many bettors rather than a plus 110 for just the fact that it's got the minus next to it. No other reason. They won't even look at the numbers. They won't look at the lineup or whatever, for whatever sport it is, even fighting, just on principle. They will lean on that favorite number for absolutely no reason. And that's how the sports books cash it, man. Because you know, when you're betting on a favorite, everybody, well, not everybody, but inexperienced bettors are usually going to pile that wager on because it's not returning as much as the underdog wager, and you're there to make money. And so now you're dumping money on a favorite, and then they get, you know.
So the public likes to bet favorites and they like to bet the over. So bookmakers shade the lines towards those two sides. The inverse of that is you'll find excellent value many of the time on both the under and the underdog. In baseball specifically, the underdogs win a lot of the time. The top teams in the league are still going to lose like 50 to 60 times throughout the course of a season, and there's a lot of profit to be made there. Baseball is a heavily volatile sport.
Shout out the Braves. Shout out the Braves.
Yep.
They are notoriously by the sports books put at -2. They probably have the worst favorite value betting on them because they will do that too. Just because it's a big market team, and we've discussed the larger markets here, they'll be at a -220, and they'll have won 4 out of their last 10, 5 out of their last 10, but they're always considered a lock if the team just in general against them has a worse record. There's just no way the Braves can win. Braves could lose. There's no way. And we see what's happening to them right now.
Yeah, it's like the Chiefs in the NFL as favorites. They very rarely cover, and they always lose outright a few times a year to fuck everybody. Braves, Dodgers -1.5 is the other one. If the Dodgers don't cover that -1.5, all the people chasing their losses on the East Coast had a real bad day.
Daytime Dodgers is a big thing in the betting community too.
Mm-hmm. Daytime Dodgers. It even rhymes, right? Phonetically pleasing to say. So you need to understand that there's a lot of value on these underdogs. Baseball is a very volatile sport. It's very volatile. I know that's a big math term, so just to keep it very simple, since there are so many games, that dilutes the outcomes. It's not like a football where across, 16, 17 games, realistically, the better team just wins. Whether or not they cover comes into play, but the better team's going to win more often than not. In baseball, there are just so many games. There are times the guys, they just don't have it. It's just not their day. Doesn't mean they're bad or anything, but it just wasn't their day. So that's why you need to manage your bankroll properly. And baseball can be a fucking slog. When the other sports end and it becomes the main sport to bet on, like July, boys, July and August baseball is fucking hard. It is hard to bet on. Like, those sports are hard, and that's why I'm so thankful for the UFC, Combat Sports, and Dana White's Contender Series for getting us through that. And on that note, this Saturday, this is it. Islam versus Poirier. We have an absolutely stacked card of fights. There are a few that stuck out to me. First one, Roman Kopylov versus Cesar Almeida. I've noticed that Kopylov started off as the favorite, and that line has progressively moved against him all week, where I believe Almeida is now even or a favorite on many books. So I just wanted to start off by acknowledging that.
The only thing that has my interest for this card, even just odds wise, it's what everybody else has their eyes on. It's the diamond, it's Islam, it's the title fight. Unfortunately, my view is not with the people. There's too much emotion. I know, brother. There's too much emotional pull on this. I would love to see Poirier ride out in the sunset, guillotine finish. Man, if he gets it done, it's in decision, and it might be one of the best fights we've ever seen. It'll be a dog fight, but even just saying that, I kind of gave myself chills because I don't believe it. I'm no better than what we were just talking about with the ridiculous, prop parlay players. We have to have a dose of reality here. Just as far as skill set, Islam, the wrestling is superior. His striking has improved fight after fight. This man put away Volk. And I feel like Volk is still suffering from the repercussions of that KO. His downward slide, I directly attribute to the Islam fight. Just a little bit too much for Dustin in this one. I would stay away from props. I might stay away from betting on the fight myself in general because there's so much emotional public pull here. But I think Islam gets it done. Realistically, he gets it done probably within 3 rounds. A first round finish. I'm sure there's going to be people that are on that. Islam's not a stupid fighter, though. He's going to come in there. He's going to break Dustin down. He's going to make sure there's tough, exhausting grappling exchanges up against the cage. He's going to wear his weight on him. Dustin is going to be out of options to some degree. He's not a world-class jiu-jitsu guy. He's your fighter's fighter, but he doesn't have this wow factor where he can really pull something out of the bag other than a knockout. And if I have to hear the term heavy fucking hands one more time from anybody in the MMA community, I'll lose my fucking mind. But he has great positioning in his knockouts, all of his knockouts. He has great positioning. He's got great awareness. He's got good jab defense. He does good things in the pocket. But in my opinion, Islam will probably take this one handedly and to the disappointment of many within 3.
Randy, it's striker versus grappler. Will the heavy hands stop the takedowns? Why don't they just block the kicks?
Man. Listen, I don't mind the casual take when it comes to these kind of fights, but it's more of a nuisance to hear it again from respected minds or minds that you respect, former fighters, Hall of Famers, because especially in MMA, there's not too many like casual analysts on the panel. Most of them are former pros, former champs, and speak from experience. And I don't know if it's intentional or not, but brother, we're in the year 2024. The broadcasting needs to get stepped up for MMA. It's an absolute fucking disgrace. I don't watch the fights with anybody. When I do watch them, they're on mute for me because it absolutely ruins it. They can't discuss positioning without buzzwords. And it's just a lot of, oh, wow. Man, if you watch if you watch any NFL team, and it doesn't matter how good or bad they are, you watch their whole regular season, 1 game a week. You don't got to make it a part-time hobby, a couple hours each day. Just 1 game each Sunday. By the end of that season, you're going to know what zone coverage is. You're going to know what cover 3 is. You're going to know what the A gap is. You're going to know what all these positions are. You're going to know routes. You're going to know just what offensive linemen are doing, what the set. They educate you on these broadcasts. You could be a coach and pick up things from an NFL broadcast. NBA teeters sometimes, but MMA is an absolute disgrace. I mean, every knockout, it's only attributed to heavy hands. It has nothing to do with positioning. It has nothing to do with defense. It has nothing to do with controlling the cage. It has nothing to do with making reads on your opponent. I just got to figure out how to make these heavier, bro. That's all there is to it. And you could be a champ one day too.
It's like the cartoons, just wrap like some fucking cinder blocks around them like your Popeye or some shit.
And this is something for me personally. I take it personally, and I get a little bit emotional on this topic, but just for me and my industry as a personal trainer and what I do in that business, to just not see any of these things carried over into MMA about detail is disappointing. And actually, I shouldn't say that. I shouldn't say MMA. I should just say UFC, because I don't know how often you watch any professional jiu-jitsu matches. Fantastic. Absolutely fantastic. Highly recommend. But again, UFC commentary, PFL commentary, any boxing commentary, good Lord, God save you. But UFC commentary will just have you believing in fairy dust, unicorns, the 17 pick parlay. All those things are possible when you listen to a UFC broadcast.
My favorite part about the UFC broadcast is anytime Cruz is on and a fighter gets finished and like the referee gives them time, he always just leans in like, yeah, real nice of the referee to give them time to defend themselves. I'm like fucking Keith Peterson. Not that I'm still upset, but Keith Peterson, if you're hearing this, fuck you. Right? He just commits to the bit.
And then you want to get upset, just know this. Keith Peterson is a main ref on the amateur circuit. So just take that into consideration.
Dude, you see that non-stoppage of Slava Claus versus Chase Hooper when Chase was just he hit him like at least 50 times undefended, and Keith's like, fight back.
Keith's right there with Mario Yamasaki, man. Just
I'll never forget that quote. I was giving him a chance to be a warrior. That's what it was, right?
Yeah, he dies.
Yeah. I think that's has that been the first or second time Dana personally said he was going to ban a ref from the UFC? I think
there's been 4 or 5. I think
I know Benoit St. Denis' debut fight, he got fucked up real bad, and Dana apparently the ref who ref that fight, they're like, yeah, you can't go back out there, bro.
And I don't know if that's an ownership thing in comparison with other sports. I mean, the UFC isn't really regulated. I don't know if that's the proper word for it, like the NBA, the NFL, the NHL. There's just not enough hands in the jar to make sure everything is. We could just talk about fighter pay, fighter insurance, all these things, and then out of the ring, and it's an absolute disgrace and a mess. And then again, you got stuff like that. You got some of these guys that are refs that absolutely have no business, and they can't perform on the pro circuit. So what do? They're over there calling fights for CFFC for hopefuls that are going pro, and hopefully not making any errors there, right?
Hopefully. Because some of the medical care on the regional shows, or depending on where you are, if you're in a place with the nearest hospital, right, those shows can get promoted out there in like the sticks. Your ass is very far from the hospital. That can go real bad.
Yeah, and thank God we haven't had any tragic news like that related to the UFC. But yeah, I don't know if there needs to be more regulation for things like that. But yeah, it's the broadcasting seems to be the main point of today, but that's honestly been the big thing for the past week. And we mentioned it last week. And so maybe I've been a little bit more focused on it with everything I've been watching. And to, I guess, just put the cherry on that, this guy retired over at MLB. I don't know if you got the news. The worst umpire of all time. I'm going to Voldemort him. Well, I shouldn't have said that guy's name, but I won't speak his name. Because it's a curse, and we'll see if maybe he does the Keith Peterson route. Maybe he can't MLB games, maybe we find him at a Little League park in a couple months. Who knows?
Oh God, Angel Hernandez versus Little League parents. Those parents would rip him to fucking shreds. I remember those people. I played Little League as a kid. By God,
He wouldn't stand a chance against Karen, brother.
no,
I don't believe it for a second.
not at all. Little Timmy's mom. Oof,
No
she
way.
has hands.
She's on the PTA, man. She knows people.
Her. And then
What we got for NHL, man? This Oilers Stars series.
Oilers, I
Insane.
have winning tonight. This will come out. It'll be recorded on the eve of Game 4. I think the Oilers force it to 2-2. Then I think the Stars go home in Dallas. They take it and ultimately win in 6 or 7. I think that the Oilers' goaltending and defensive issues at home, when you have last change, you can mask those. But they catch up to you eventually. Game 3, that was an epic collapse late into the period, right? Jason Robertson led the charge. And anytime the Stars, those middle six, right? The second line and the third line just start rolling and rolling. And they're able to roll all 4 lines. Whereas Edmonton, you know the story. Draisaitl and McDavid are going to be the heart of the offense. Zach Hyman's going to be standing in front of the net, just, doing his best with his big ass shovel. Shout out Coach Chippy. He's trying to shovel it into the net. And they do have some excellent supporting pieces there, like Evander Kane on his contract. That's always going to be nice. Adam Henrique. I'm surprised to see him used the way he was. They finally put him back in Game 3, and he actually had a key point if they were going to be able to come back in the end there and win that game. But, they got Dallas starred. That's my take on that series. I think the Stars' scoring depth is just too much. And then as for the goaltending, Stuart Skinner has been disappointing, but not atrocious. I don't think he's been the sole reason why they're losing these games, right? There have been defensive breakdowns, lapses in the neutral zone, in the defensive zone. Guys are getting to areas with free space where they just shouldn't be. At the same time, though, this late in the playoffs, you need your goalie to be good. Doesn't need to have those sparkling numbers, but look at what Bobrovsky's done for Florida. Bobrovsky doesn't see a ton of shots every game, almost to his detriment, right? It affects him getting into that rhythm. But when you need him to show up, he almost always does. And when he doesn't, they lose. So that's kind of the expectation. That's what you need out of your goalie. I'm very curious to see what Edmonton does because they're at a very unusual crossroads as a team. You cannot blow this up. You just can't. Draisaitl is still in his prime. He's still excellent. McDavid's going to be with the cup window until he's probably 35. You have to be all in almost every single year. But they're hamstrung. They can only improve so much. I'm very curious to see what decisions they make this offseason, and I'm very curious to see where that goes. On top of that, over here in the East, Rangers versus Panthers, good old-fashioned hate. Kreider versus Kachuk. Jacob Trouba has his fucking magic elbow. He brought that out in Game 3. That heat-seeking missile of an elbow. I'm very happy is not the right word, but it is interesting to see a team just kind of play like the Panthers against the Panthers. Generally, the Panthers do this to other teams. They'll snarl, they'll hit you behind the whistle, like Lomberg knocked out VC, took him out of the series. And the Rangers responded by putting Rempe back in. They let Trouba unleash his super-duper magical elbow of death. They're starting shit behind the whistle as well. And I think that's a big part of why they've been so competitive in this series. They were up 2-1. They easily could have been up 3-1. They've been able to take the Panthers' punches and punch back. I have this going 7. I have no idea who wins. Gun to my head, I'd have to lean Florida simply just because they'll have home ice advantage and they'll have last change. But, man, absolute banger going on in the East.
So with the Rangers, I want to say that we discussed, I guess it would be about 2-3 weeks ago, when it looked like that they were going to put the cherry on top of the last series, and it looked like that they were going to be facing the Panthers as they were wrapping that up. I believe we discussed, or I may have brought up the point, the Rangers' physicality may put them behind in this series, and I definitely called that wrong. They are out there really, how you've said it in the past. I mean, they're going to push you in the back. They're going to say shit about your mother. They're going to hit you as dirty as they can with any opportunity. And it's paying dividends for them. I am very shocked that they came away with the last one. But yeah, who knows who wins that one? Most likely 7, right?
Mhm.
And you said Panthers have home ice game 7, so but man, the Rangers look like they're doing something. It seems like it. I don't think anybody really. I don't even think Rangers fans believe that they were gonna go up 2-1 in this series to start. So it's gonna be interesting watching this play out. As far as the Oilers Star series, um, unreal with the Oilers power play and efficiency right now. Uh, I believe the last game uh, they were 0 for 2, 0 for 3 through the second period. They had a couple opportunities there, and they just could not get it done. And then I think it was within 2 minutes Dallas had back to backs. I want to say it was late in the second or late in that third period, early in the third period or late in the second. I'm sorry, but yeah, just a defensive collapse there. That game looked like it should have been much closer than it ended up being, but in your words, they got Dallas start. They just could not keep up after pretty much like the first like 28 minutes of the game. Uh, Oilers were not there. They had a nice goal by McDavid early on. They put their pair up early, but yeah, they just could not get it going. Looks like the Stars will run away with that, which pains me a little bit. I had Canucks or Oilers uh, getting to the Stanley. But yeah, it looks like the Oilers might be a little bit worn down. And to your point about the off season, uh, will be interesting. Very similar to the Knicks position, in my opinion. You can't blow this up. You cannot blow this up. You got to try and retain what you can and just run it back in 2025 if this series doesn't shake out. But they got a hell of a roster there. And again, it shows. They had that weird little period in the beginning of the regular season, and then they took off flying. And here we are. Tough Star series. But yeah, I agree with your point. Both takes probably. Who knows who takes that Rangers Panthers series? But it's looking like the Stars have the heavy hand here, and they take it.
One quick correction: the Rangers actually have home ice advantage
Ah,
in the Eastern Conference.
oh,
Yeah.
oh, Game 7 in New York. That's good. That if it gets there, that's that's loud and that's huge and dramatic, which would serve as great fuel if it goes to Game 7 and the Rangers win that game. That's excellent fuel going into the finals. So
And I think the way it's going right now, I think Florida would have to close them out in 6 to win. If it goes back to game 7 tied, I would favor the Rangers. Like you said, the atmosphere they'll have last change. And something else I've noticed, Florida has 2 lineups they run. They have a full goon lineup and they have a more balanced lineup. If Florida wants to go full dirty, like punch you in the mouth, kick you in the back of the chin, or whatever, they'll put in Cousins and Lomberg, and they'll take out a Pozo and somebody else. If they want the more balanced approach, they'll put a Pozo back in, and they'll take Lomberg and Cousins out, at least one of the two. Those guys, like I said, I talked about that, I think, a few episodes ago. You have guys like Kachuk, Sam Bennett. Even if Kachuk and Sam Bennett didn't engage in the tomfoolery, they would still be excellent players. Cousins and Lomberg, no, that's their game. That's why they're in the NHL. They're in there to stir shit up. So perhaps they almost overloaded that a little too much because they won game 4 without going all in on that particular play style. They played a bit of a cleaner game. They had Sam Reinhart winning on the power play. I think he's their key to victory. If he's able to help them convert those special teams opportunities, right? He is the power play guy in the NHL, at least this last year. He was amazing on the power play. I think him and Barkov 5-on-5 are where their money is. I don't think Kachuk and Bennett, as good as those guys are the keys to victory. I think it's going to come down the middle with Barkov. And of
yeah,
course, Reinhardt supplementing that. And on the Rangers side, if Mika Zibanejad and Chris Kreider can really show up with Alexis Lafreniere playing the way he is, some of the other guys on the Rangers like Wenberg coming out of nowhere to get that OT winner. If Mika and Kreider are able to play to their potential these last 3 games, there's going to be a Stanley Cup Finals game in New York. If not, the Panthers up and down the lineup generally are able to grind you out the longer it goes. I will say that one thing. Even though I would lean to the Rangers in a game 7, the longer it goes, the more that favors Florida, right? The deeper into the game, if it's tied, that's good for Florida. Deeper into these games, if Florida's up 1-0, they're the best closers in the NHL. If they're down 1-0, you better extend that lead because they're going to keep coming. Florida's forecheck is their bread and butter. And ultimately, I'm just excited to see how this plays out. I'm trying to think of a pick to give you. I'm going to keep it real. I don't know. I really don't know who's going to win the series yet. I got nothing.
Sometimes the best pick is no pick. I feel like we haven't really focused on really giving out collective picks between me and you, and I feel like that's for good reason. But especially in the postseason, again, some people find it to be the best time to start throwing down wagers. I kind of disagree because there's so much. Every sport, football, NHL, basketball, baseball, it's all a totally different game in the postseason. So yeah, I mean the glamour of New York postseason game 7s. You know what I mean? Who doesn't want that? And who doesn't want to believe if you're a tri-state local and you're a Rangers fan? That's the most exciting thing for any sport that has a game 7 result in the postseason or finals. It's and it goes back to what you said, right? There's some teams that really look for that. They want the long series because they know the longer it goes on, they're going to grind you out and they're going to take advantage of the fatigue that you're going to have. And it might be a little bit more pressure for the Rangers to seal it up at home. It might be a little bit more of a comfortable environment for Florida playing game 7 in New York. So I agree. There's definitely not a clear-cut pick. You could 50-50, you could flip a coin, and that's probably just as good as giving one out on this. This is as close as it gets.
And that about wraps it up for me. That's all the topics I wanted to touch on tonight. Randy, you have anything else you want to add?
Nah, it does it, brother.
Nah, I think we covered a lot on this show. NHL, MMA, NBA, the broadcasters, the tinfoil hats, the fucking tricks of the sports books. We had a very wide-ranging show tonight. I think this is a great place to end it because we gave you a lot of content.
I agree, man. Hey, and there's no such thing, in my opinion, as too much advice, because at some point you could either check out and be like, nah, this is too much, or hey, I'm sure that there's at least one person that gains something new from just our general betting insights on here on what to stay away from. Because me and you have had plenty of losses, and if you could help one person just see what you're picking a little bit clearer, that's all we're trying to do here. Smart betting.
Indeed. So thank you for watching. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe, all that cool jazz. Until next time, I'm Ryan. I'm here with Randy. See you, boys.
Thank you, Ryan. Take it easy.
You got me feeling lucky. I'm putting everything on black.